Hey Marines, it's Andrea. I wanted to do a video about tendonitis. I get a lot of emails and I see things go by about injuries and what can you do about injuries. So what I thought I would do is take you through just some basic information about tendonitis, because usually, like with me, it helps to know what is going on in order for me to understand why I'm fixing it the way that I'm supposed to. It motivates me because I know I'm countering what I know is going on now. So, okay, tendonitis is an overuse injury or repetitive strain injury. When people say strain, they're talking about tendons. When people say sprain, they're talking about ligaments. Tendons are at the ends of your muscle and they connect the muscle to the bone. It's the part in between. Ligaments connect bone to bone. So, okay, let's say you do something repetitively. Most of the time, most of my patients that come in that have a repetitive strain injury or like a tendonitis, it's not from something they did one time. They didn't fall down the steps and get tendonitis. It's something that has to accumulate over time. And so, because of that, there are varying degrees of that, and because it accumulates over time, the only way to really reverse it is to reverse it over a period of time. And then generally, because structures have been compromised, the integrity of the structures have been compromised, you generally have to maintain that level of self-care for a very long time. So what happens in a tendonitis is, let's say you're doing something over and over and over and over. Your muscle has give and it has elasticity to it, but your tendons don't. So once your muscle wears out tension-wise and it has no more elasticity to it, then the tendons try and play their part and get some elasticity to it and stretch, but they don't stretch as well. And so what happens is you get little frays and little micro tears in the fibers. They also don't have a great blood supply. So where your muscle can repair itself with blood flow, generally, in a quick amount of time, your tendons do not. And so we have to help the scenario and try and get blood flow to the area. Well, once you have micro tears or an injury of any kind, your body responds with inflammation. It's a natural injury response to try and get range of motion to decrease in that area so that you don't keep re-injuring it. But we've invented things called painkillers, and so when we take an anti-inflammatory, it has a painkiller in it. So what do? We keep working on injured tissue, which further frays it, which further invokes an injury response and more inflammation to the area, and you just continue the cycle, and you wonder why you don't heal. Well, so this is what's going on. Anything that has an itis attached to it is an inflammation. So bronchitis, inflammation of the bronchial tubes. Plantar fasciitis, inflammation of the plantar fascia, which is like a sheath kind of tendon thing on the underside of your foot. All these things are inflammation. Itises are inflammation. So if we have a tendonitis, it's inflammation in the tendon. What we have to do first is rid ourselves of, if we can, this is the hardest part, the activity that hurt it in the first place. Because you can't just keep doing it, you'll keep re-injuring yourself. So if you can, stop your activity. Number two, we have to reduce the inflammation. It's blocking the blood flow from getting to the area and healing the area. So ice. Ice shrinks down blood. It slows down blood flow, first of all, but it also shrinks and contracts. I couldn't think of the word there. It contracts the vessels where our lymphatics flow through, our lymphatic system. Lymphatics only really flow with body movement. They don't have a heart to pump like the blood vessels do. So anyway, we put on ice and it shrinks it down. Well, ever notice when you take off ice, your skin gets red? That's because the blood flow is finally getting back through because there's not inflammation blocking the pathway. So you need to ice. Once we do this for a number of days or so, we can get beyond and up and over the hurdle of the inflammatory stage, where your body's producing all this inflammation to try and splint itself. After that, there's other protocols that you can do. There's vascular flushes, which you do ice, heat. Heat expands things. So ice, heat, and then before you know it, you're wringing out your muscle and all the metabolic waste and stuff like that. But major key here is just to keep icing that inflammation. Pain is the last indication that you've been injured. You've probably been injured and micro-torn like way before that, but it has to get to a certain point for it to register in your brain as pain. So even once the symptoms of pain go away, still continue to ice this structure, whatever it is, as long as you're doing that job, and maybe even after that, because it's not going to just go away. What you've done is you've corrected some of the symptoms, but the condition of the tight muscle or the frayed fibers, they've repaired themselves to a point, but they can still always come back. So you always just kind of want to keep on that and keep icing. So ice is going to be your best friend with any sort of inflammation. So as we train and we have to reverse the effects of training, just remember to ice. It's going to be like your best friend. A lot of times with my patients, I recommend forget the bag of frozen peas. Get raw rice and put it in a pillowcase or in a sock. It gets cold, the grains go together like this, and they retain the coolness of the freezer, but they don't get as cold as ice, so you don't get that burning sensation on your skin. So try that. You also don't get all the weird condensation all over. So ice is my best advice for tendonitis. I'm going to do another video about tendinosis because there's stuff you need to know about that. If your tendonitis goes beyond about a 6-week mark, you probably have tendinosis, and then there's other things that we need to do. So stand by.